Okay, if I could have your attention, I'd like to call the September meeting of the Northeast Ohio Sustainable Communities Consortium Board of Directors meeting to order. First order of business is welcome to local officials. I don't think I saw any local Cuyahoga County or Cleveland officials that aren't on the board, but if there are any here that would like to address the consortium or introduce yourself, please feel free to do so now. Okay. I guess with that, we'll move into our typical agenda as far as introductions go. I'm Jason Segedy. I'm the 2012 chair of the Board of Directors of NEOSCC. In my day job, I'm the director of AMATS, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization serving Greater Akron. And if you would, I'll start here to my left with Hunter. If we could just go around the table, introduce ourselves, and let the board know also which work stream you're affiliated with.
Hunter Morrison, Executive Director of the Consortium and affiliated with them all.
Grace Gallucci, Treasurer of NEOSCC, as well as Executive Director for NOACA.
Don Romanchuk, representing the Lorain County Growth Partnership and on the Quality Connected Places.
Mike Challenger, Lorain County Growth Partnership, Quality Connected Places.
Lucy Miller, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I'm the Ohio Sustainability Officer. I'm working on the AI.
Janice Schweitzer with Ashburn County. I'm on the Housing and Communities Ministry.
Bill Davignon with the City of Youngstown Community Development Plan for Quality Connected.
Hi, Brad Chase with the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. I'm on the Connections Workstream and the Communications Workstream.
Hi, Shauna Doherty with the Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority. With the Housing and Communities Workstream and Quality Connected Places as well.
Fred Collier, Cleveland City Planning Commission, Quality Connected Places, Engagement and Housing Workstreams.
Greg Brown, Executive Director of Policy Bridge, Communication and Engagement Workstream, and Housing and Communities Workstream.
Mary Beth Peak with the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority on the Quality Connected Places and Connections.
Ed Juris, Director of Regional Collaboration for Cuyahoga County. I'm on the Economic Development Workstream.
Bob Now, Stark County Regional Planning, Housing, and Communities Workstream.
Jeff Dutton, Stark County Area Transportation Study, and working on the Connections Workstream.
Kelly Harris, Administrative Assistant for NEOSCC.
Roy Church, Lorain County Community College, and I'm so new I don't know what I'm working on.
Holly Brenda, Mayor of Elyria, Quality Connected Places and Finance Committee.
Ron Shortis, Youngstown State, Director of the Center for Urban Regional Studies and the Economic Development Workstream.
Mike Lyons with the Regional Prosperity Initiative on the Communications and Engagement.
Joe Hadley, Director of NEFCO on the Environments Workstream.
John Getchy, Skate Regional Council, Connections.
Rachel McCartney, Skate Regional Council of Governments, Environments Workstream.
Dan Mamula, the Vice Chair, Mahoning County, Environment.
Okay, and am I missing any board members that aren't at the table? I don't think so. And Dr. Church, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you as the newest member of NEOSCC. Okay, with that, the next order of business on the agenda is public comment, and we do have a couple minutes devoted on the agenda to public comment if there are any members of the public that would wish to address the consortium. I don't think I was aware of any, but give you that opportunity now if there are. Okay, not seeing any, we'll move on to item 3, which is the report on the Board of Directors and Executive Committee. First order of business is approving the minutes of the August meeting, and entertain a motion to approve the minutes at this time. Motion from Mayor Brenda. Second, Mr. Hadley. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Next order of business is the report on the Executive Committee meeting, which I believe was September 11th, and I think Mr. Mamula here is going to give that report.
Okay, with regard to a summary report of the Executive Committee meeting that was held on September the 11th,
Among the action items that the executive committee took was approval of a payment to Carreri for work done in August beyond their contract date and for additional services that they provided on the organizational redesign, and that was approved. And also extending Carreri's role with the initiative to provide facilitation services for additional organizational redesign as it relates to the board and to the project management office. Both of those contracts were, that contract was amended, raising the total to $147,000 from its original for the work done in August, and then to $170,000 for the additional work that's going to go on through January of 2013. In addition to that, at the the chair's request, a personnel committee was formed. He designated the officers, and with one addition, Brad Whitehead, to conduct the performance evaluation of the director. It was suggested at that particular time that in addition to the officers, Jason, Grace, Tom Farrell, myself, Steve Hambley, and Brad Whitehouse, if there's any other executive committee members who want to participate in that evaluation process, please contact Jason to be part of the process. Jason's starting the process as is required by, I believe HUD wants it done, and well, it is an obligation of the consortium to do. In addition to that, in response to the formation of a finance committee consisting of Mike Lyons, Holly Brinda, Bob Now, Grace Gallucci, and myself, Grace Gallucci was elected to chair the finance committee by acclamation. But nonetheless, only a note on that, the finance committee will have to meet immediately after this meeting to make some decisions relative to procuring some services under our new policy with regard to legal and I believe accounting services, auditing services. So if you stick around real quick, we need at least 3 members to stay for that. And finally, we received a letter from Mike Lyons and Freddie, I believe Collier, relative to the 12 county 12 months from the communications engagement work stream, encouraging that we continue the 12 county 12 month program. There has been some discussion, if you recall, when we changed the procurement regulations, we made provisions that the board can eventually not meet every month. Full board can go to monthly or quarterly. And there was some question about how that impacted on the 12 county 12 month program. And a letter was received and to acknowledge that for point of discussion, the executive committee. We took no action because there are some pretty valid points in trying to say, well, we can meet in 12 counties in 12 months, but not making a board meeting. The pushback on that was, will the board come? You know, there's all kinds of issues like that. And so we kind of let it go. We still have 12 counties, 12 months at this particular time until it is discussed further by the board or appropriate individuals. And that, Mr. Chairman, is essentially it. Is any other executive committee member, did I miss anything that needs to be addressed? Being none, that's the report.
Okay. Any questions for Dan or any other executive committee members before we move on? Okay. Thanks. Next item I'll turn over to Hunter and the staff, and it's the 2012 board and executive committee meeting schedule.
Mr. Chairman, the next meeting is October 23rd in Ashtabula. And the next executive committee meeting is October 9th in our offices. I think the next item is the board survey.
Right. Yeah, go ahead, Hunter. Take it away.
Mr. Chairman, one of the goals for the month of September, which we've met, is to conduct a membership survey. Hopefully we do this on a regular basis. And I think you'll find the results very interesting. We did post them all to everyone in the complete form, so for those who want to go through each one of the questions and the responses, those I believe were sent out to you. But this is an attempt on just part of my own to summarize the results of that. First of all, that 27 organizations began the survey, with the exception of two duplicates. We had about a 76% response rate. 20 completed the total, several others completed a portion of it. 22 of the organizations self-identified, and 13 of the 27 are members of the executive committee. So from the point of view of a breadth of survey, I think we got a very good response. The first question had to do with the board meetings, whether you attended meetings regularly, and for what best describes your reasons for doing so. The bulk of the respondents said it's essentially their responsibility as a board member. 16% said they learned about what was going on in the region. 8% that the meetings were of great value. 4% were not sure of why they were coming. And we saw not as many responses as I would have expected at this point about networking opportunities. 56% of the respondents rated the 12-county program as effective, 8% as ineffective. So while there's still some debate going on about whether to do it, I think the majority felt at this point that it was worth doing. Most cited the program as a way of learning about the region. That suggested to us that we needed to give more advance notice of the itinerary, suggested consistency in the themes, and other comments, which we'll take into consideration as we frame up the rest of these. So these are increasingly of value to those who come. In terms of communications, and one of our goals here was to try to understand how we're doing on the communicating with the board. In terms of the meeting materials, 64% effective to highly effective. Website and staff support, all above the majority, seeing those as effective to highly effective. We need to work on the newsletter, which Jeff will talk a little bit about. Glass cubes, which is one of our communications tools, continues to be something that we need to work on in terms of getting folks to get on that platform, because right now it's not scoring very high. In terms of communications, I'm glad to see that members are reporting back to their organizations on a monthly or quarterly basis. 71% said that they either have or will incorporate the success measures into their organizational strategy. Again, we had comments on making the information more succinct and on a standard schedule. And 60% said that a 1 to 3 page quarterly report would help to make the connection. So again, these are very valuable suggestions to making our communications with you more successful. In terms of what are the expectations of the PMO, the vast majority, 92%, said that their highest priority was success in delivering the Fiber Neo 2040 framework plan. 80% said fostering the development of collaboration, which I thought, again, was one of the things that we said from the very beginning is a key goal. Providing key and timely communications, effective committee work, and be a source of information. These are all things that scored relatively highly. We have not yet seen as a priority providing guidance and support to your individual organizations. I think as time goes on, that may emerge as a priority for the PMO. But clearly, the goal of finishing the plan is paramount. In terms of the effectiveness, again, we went down and saw that the high effectiveness in the way of staff, committee, and working groups, that providing clear and timely communications, becoming a resource of information, all scored in the majority. facilitating and fostering the development of a collaborative network, and successfully delivering the framework plan right now are lower on that list. Expectations of the board leadership and executive committee. Again, the key focus being on the delivery of the framework plan. 96% saying that. Facilitating collaborative relationships, providing overall leadership and overall governance are key areas. Communication and identifying regional issues further down. In terms of the effectiveness there, again, I think none of the scores were in the majority, but the highest ones were effective, successfully overseeing the development of the plan and providing communications and identifying trends. In terms of what the value of the organization is, at this point in time, 75% indicated the collaboration, the forum, and learning more about the region were a key part of the value proposition. 40% indicated that it's helped to advance the organization's mission, and 84% indicated they were committed to or highly committed to the NEOSCC work. About a quarter have increased, about a quarter have decreased. So again, the level of board commitment I think is high. In terms of what we've accomplished to date, 44% cited the condition and trends platform, 28% creating the collaborative forums, and 28% on the land use and zoning maps. In terms of the NEOSCC foundational work, 68 that we've talked about in the last couple of meetings, 68% said they were very familiar or extremely familiar with this. 92% indicated they were somewhat very confident that we will achieve our purpose and mission, and 88% indicated that they're somewhat to very confident that we'll achieve our course model. So there's an optimism going forward. We focus then on the livability principles in a way of sort of getting an indication of where people are on these elements that are critical to the overall framework of the plan. And again, those livability principles dealing with transportation, housing, economic competitiveness, supporting existing communities, leveraging investment and value in communities and neighborhoods. 3/4 of the board respondents indicated that they were familiar with the livability principles, and the majority indicated that neutral to effective in capturing the aspirations. This is the mind map of the hopes and outcomes that drawn from the work, and clearly a lot of the planning and collaboration, regional work come forward in this map. So finally, in terms of summarizing the hopes and the outcomes, completion of the Vibrant NEO 2040 and the fulfillment of our responsibilities, continuing the collaboration through development and going forward, an engagement process at all levels of the region to ensure effective buy-in, implementation of the 2040 framework plan, completion of the products, and developing plans for the long-term role of the organization. These 6 steps are the key hopes and outcomes expressed at this point. Now, we're going to be doing this survey on a regular basis and gauging progress towards it. Jeff, what's our next survey time?
I think it's every 6 months.
Every 6 months? Okay. So we'll expect that. And again, thank you for filling it out. And we may try to shorten it perhaps next time because we're getting at some questions 2 or 3 different ways. I think now that we have a baseline, we can perhaps make it a little easier for you to fill out the vacant slots. Are there any questions for Jeff or Jason?
Actually, just a little bit of follow-up, and thanks for clarifying the part about the timeline. And thank you, too, on behalf of the board that was a pretty long survey, I think. In talking to the staff, the next one will be shored up a little bit. And I think a big part of the intention of the survey on an ongoing basis is to try to retain a lot of the same questions so we can kind of track people's opinions over time as the project goes on. I think that one of the things probably at the next executive committee, we'll take a look at the results and delve into them a little bit further as far as maybe what changes do we need to make organizationally, and probably as work we'll continue to do with Cureri, as Dan mentioned, on the organizational design. And then finally, for my part, just a personal comment, the livability part of this and the sustainability part of this has always been near and dear to my heart, and my hope for the consortium as we move through the organizational redesign Hunter's going to talk about, and the new work plan and implementing the products that we agreed to, that we never take our eye off the ball of the sustainability part of this, because I think there are lots of other parallel efforts in the region that focus, say, on economic development or on collaboration, but I think what sets us apart and what's unique about us is that we do have a focus, as the S in our name implies, on sustainability. And I guess with that, if there are any other comments on the survey results or suggestions on either for the staff or for the executive committee or board to learn from what was shown on the survey, feel free to discuss that at this time. I think we do have 5 or 10 minutes that we could spend discussing this if you do have questions or comments.
Hunter, have you had any thoughts? I know it's pretty recent, but have you had any thoughts on how you and the staff might use the results at this point?
Well, I think one of the key things is the communication, and there were some pretty specific effectiveness questions about how well we're communicating, particularly with the board. And I think that you'll already see some results in terms of a simplified look ahead to what are we accomplished, what are we doing the next month, so that it's clear. And I think Jeff may want to talk a little bit about how you're taking the communications concerns to heart in that way. I think it was very heartening to see the level of awareness of the livability principles, since we really haven't focused on that as a drill down. And I think that's one where I think there's an opportunity to do get more clarity on that as we go forward in our messaging. What we're trying to do, as Jason said, that sustainable is the middle of our name, so we might as well make it really clear what we mean by that. I think it was also indicative of that we need to work with you on how what we're doing can help your organizations make them more effective, more sustainable, more efficient. There appears to be a good deal of communications from individual board members back to their organizations. The question, to my mind, is how useful are the things that we're doing to you over time? And can we make sure we're establishing those very clear lines of communication until then? It seemed to me that while your reporting was not entirely clear yet, that this was something that was going to bring value at every point. So those are some questions we need to keep teasing out. What's going to be of value to you beyond the HUD grid, over the long, the value of having an organization like this.
Any other questions or discussion before we move on? Okay, thanks. Next item on the agenda is 4A under organization, presentation of the current financials and budget update, and I believe this one's going to be a joint effort of Emma and Sarah, so I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. In your packets, you have the most updated consortium membership list. We have 33 members, and our leverage match reported to date is just under $1.1 million. And over the next month, I'll be getting in contact with all of you about leverage match and seeing where you are to date, making sure that we have the most updated records and getting updates as we need. So if you have any questions, or if you see on here that your match isn't what you think you've reported, just come get me after the meeting.
So you have in your packets the month-end August financials
One note, at least based on what Sarah just said, is that this the consortium members total is a little bit lower than the previous report, just because this is based on month end. But you'll see here that our expenditures now are just over $1 million through the term of this project. We're on pace with all of the categories and how we're spending the funds. And the following sheet includes our cash position. So this is the funds we've drawn from or received in cash from consortium members. Are there any questions about our current expenditures budget? Great. Next, you have the details of our open and pending contracts and RFPs. This was issued late last week, so we do actually have a couple of pending invoices for a couple of these contracts that will be issued, or the payments will be issued tomorrow. But you see our moving through and adjustments with the existing contracts and agreements that we have. Of note, we have now invoices in progress through with some of the later contracts that we have listed here, including the Western Economic Services and Cobalt. We are now approaching the closure of 2 open RFQs that we had, both for audit and legal services. As Dan mentioned earlier, the Finance Committee will be reviewing this hopefully after this meeting. And the big RFP of note right now that is open is the Planning Management, Scenario Planning, and Fiscal Impact Analysis Consultant. That opened officially last week, and it'll be open for a month. To note, at least with this one in particular, is that we will be having a pre-bid meeting next week for any vendors or consultants who are interested in responding to 1, 2, or all parts of the RFP. And it has been included in some of your emails and materials that Jeff and others have sent to you. So please send it through any networks that you have with firms or groups who may be able to provide those services for us. That concludes the finance and consultants. Are there any questions that I can answer about the progress or details? Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. All right, next item is 4B under organization, and this is a presentation that Hunter was going to give on kind of where we are with the organizational framework of the project and of the program management office. And I think Hunter's got a nice framework put together and a good presentation for our attention this afternoon. Take it away, Hunter.
Chairman, thank you. This is a culmination of about 6 months of work that we've been undertaking as a board, and core group of the board, the executive committee, and staff under the direction and with profoundly valuable advice of Sally Parker and the Career Group, to look at the way in which we're organized, both for the near-term outcome of developing the 2040 plan, but also for the long-term sustainability of the organization. In order to sort of boil this all down, we sort of took an approach of looking at it as frequently asked questions, because these are the sort of questions you need to be able to answer to your boards and your organizations, as you explain what NEOSCC is. How are we organized? What are we doing? How are we doing it? And when will we be done? Who are we is the consortium of 32 organizations. We've gone through that before. It's a broadly representative group of organizations, both public sector and charitable and other groups that represent interests from across Northeast Ohio. It's buffered also and augmented by over 200 subject matter experts that we've enlisted in our 5 different work streams. So there's a significant investment organizationally and individually across the region in pursuit of sustainability. But let me focus this afternoon on these 4 questions. We're organized as a board with an executive committee. The grantee is NOACA. They are actually holding the federal contract from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. There's a program management office, a small professional office. There are the 5 work streams, and the working groups, the 4 working groups, which we're now relabeling product development teams in order to keep the language clear. Product development teams are the ones focused on the product deliverables in addition to the plan, which are the dashboard, the toolkit, the policies, and the pilots. And then consultants. These are the resources that are brought together under the direction of this board to carry our work. How are we organized? And this I think we sent this out to you so you get a sense of the organizational framework. Basically, starting at the top, the board and the executive committee, to which an executive director reports. To the left and right are 2 advisory groups, a technical steering committee, which is drawn from the directors of the Forum Metropolitan Planning Organization and an EFCO Council of Government, provide advice to the director and the deputy director for administration on the technical aspects of this work, and a set of organizational caucuses. And already we have sort of the core of that, and RTA, Mary Beth Keith, representing the RTA, which where the director Joe Calabrese has agreed to and already begin bringing together his colleagues of the transit agencies in Northeast Ohio. So these are groupings of organizations such as park directors, parks, metro parks, transit authorities, and we hope to grow also with the health boards and the like. The organizations that broadly administer plans and funds in Northeast Ohio that need to be engaged in this process. Going down into the staff level, we basically have, if you look at the left side, the Deputy Director for Administration, advised by the Finance Committee and a compliance group, which is essentially Joe Krakowski and Sarah Meyer and Emma Barcelona, who work on a very regular basis to make sure that the compliance requirements of the federal government are met. Next to the right, a loan executive from NOACA. This is one of the major changes that has occurred in the last month. Is NOACA stepping up and assigning Sarah Meyer, who's been involved in this project from the very beginning, to work with us as a loan executive and to provide program management capacity, managing our program our project managers in the capacity of developing those products, the 4 products I mentioned before. To the right, the program or the planning management consultant. We see this position, as we've described it in the RFP that's out, is essentially a manager of the other consultants to deliver the plan, but also fitting well within the organizational framework. In a different configuration, we might have hired a deputy director for planning, so we're essentially saying what we need to do is bring that capacity in to assist in managing the scenario planning, the fiscal impact analysis, and engagement, and the assessment of impediments to fair housing. And Deputy Director for Communications, Jeff Andley, to whom our communications consultant reports, and who continues to work very closely with our very important engagement and communication committee. The next level down are our project managers and our consultants. The project managers, as you know, Joe McDonald, Kelly Britt, Anthony Kovac, and part-time Mark Barbat have been dealing with the work streams. They will continue to staff those as pillars of the organization, and have also been assigned as product managers to deal with the dashboard, the toolkit, the policies, and the pilots. And to the right, the consultant team, scenario planning and fiscal impact analysis, engagement, and the regional AI, all of which need to work together very closely over the next year to deliver the product of the plan. And the Quality Connected Places group, which will conclude its work in the November-December period, will be essentially reframed to be of support to the scenario planning, because essentially what they've been doing is teeing up for scenario planning. what I'm going to go through next is a listing of the functional role, primary functional roles and accountabilities for the office, the board, the executive committee, the grantee, the PMO. And again, I think you have these in your folder, so we sent them out. But the board, again, providing policy direction and governance and ensuring that the mission and vision is carried out. It's accountable to the region and the funders for the product delivered. It's a check and balance. Executive committee providing leadership to the PMO, fiscal oversight, organizational design, managing the executive director, and being a sounding board for the PMO. The grantee, NEOSCC, responsible for federal grant performance and accountable to the head office of sustainable housing communities. And the PMO implementing the program, providing staff support to the board, day-to-day operations, delivering on the mission and vision, and grant compliance on a day-to-day basis. Going into, down the list, the role of the executive director is to deliver the key products and services and advance the mission. And underneath the executive director, the deputy director of administration, accountable for grant management, human resources, payroll, purchasing, consultant management, a range of consultant management, support, and management of administrative assistance. Again, with the director of communications, the role again is managing and coordinating the regional engagement efforts. Accountable for developing and overseeing the communications and engagement strategy and internal and external communication, website development, etc. Responsible for overseeing the consortium and regional network development, consultant management of our communications team, staff communications and engagement committee, etc. Deputy Director for Planning, which we see it as a consultant position, is managing and coordinating the regional planning efforts, including scenario planning, accountable for developing and producing the IPO vision and framework, responsible for coordinating that vision with the products and process team, consultant management of engagement, regional AI, scenario planning, fiscal impact, and staffing the quality connected places. Planning and product development, loan executive, managing and coordinating the effective and efficient development and execution of the launchable products and services to meet regional needs. Accountable for developing and executing the products and processes, the four that I mentioned before. Responsible for promoting and fostering collaboration, managing and assigning monitoring consortium and kind resources, and staffing the technical team. So again, those are the key roles. It's just a bit in the weeds, I'm sure, for some, but we wanted to go through this process to bring closure to the work that's been done over the summer on the organizational structure, with the expectation that this is an organizational structure that can last beyond the grant, peeling away the planning management function, which is largely consultant, leaving a team in place that can continue to execute the plan and the products. Are there any questions at this stage? Yes.
Update where the work streams are, because at least the economic development one has met recently. I'm wondering what their role is and where they're at.
We'll get into this in a minute, Ed, but the work streams have all, with the exception of Quality Connected Places, finished the first major product, which was the conditions and trends. As we've thought about how to transition into a product development side, they continue to be key pillars of the organization. But in terms of meeting on a regular basis, probably not at the moment. Now, in terms of economic development, Brad Whitehead asked to be relieved of his job as the co-chair. Connie Krause and Bethany Duff from Medina County agreed, along with Pat Kelly, to continue to serve. So you'll be hearing from them. This graphic tries to answer your question. In the bubbles at the top are the 5 work streams: economic development, environment, housing and communities, connections, and quality connected places. The work streams with their 200 plus members really are key, I believe, long-term allies and components of the consortium. They're subject matter experts drawn from around the region. They reflect a wide range of both geographic and technical expertise. They need to be continued during the planning process and beyond to be key foundational elements of the organization. The horizontal elements are the products that we're producing at this point in time. The vibrant NEO vision and framework, the dashboard, the toolkits, policies, and pilots. In terms of weaving together, those are more like task forces. Because over time, those tasks may change. You're not going to do a regional sustainability plan every year. You may not do, you're going to update a dashboard, but you may not do a new dashboard every year. You may go on to something else. But again, the work streams, we would hope continue to provide advice to this body as our technical subject matter experts. So again, to answer the question, the work streams are to provide subject matter expertise, establish the foundation of information and data for the conditions and trends platform, begin to be a fundamental foundation for a regional network of networks. Each one came to the table, to the work streams, bringing their own networks, whether it's in agricultural, the agricultural sector, or the economic development sector, the industrial sector, transportation, and the like. And in a sense, they can serve as affinity and focus groups. The product teams are much more like, we see it as much more like task forces, diverse teams of subject matter experts with broad geographic representation, implementation, and technical experience, defining needs, developing products and services and tools to support the testing, launching, and learning, maintaining, and sustaining. The phases of the development process which emerged out of the work this summer that is the structure of doing the product. And the caucuses, which I mentioned earlier, are convenings of agencies and organizations that share the common mission and service portfolio for specific locations, such as transit agencies, metro parks, health board, planning commissions, and the like. We'd like them to be in a position to share existing and future plans, identify and collaborate on issues of truly regional significance, facilitate the alignment of plans throughout the region, and serve as focus groups for the vision. So that's, Mary Beth, that's kind of what we're seeing, a group brought together, say, on transit, or a group brought together on public health. That they're already meeting, and they meet to help us. Any questions on this one?
Hunter, I did have one there. I like the concept of the product teams when this was built in there, and I know that you've done some work already on starting to launch some of these or to do some kind of intelligence gathering to figure out how to organize them. And since they're probably, well, one of the newest features in this new organizational design, could you just share a little bit more with the board maybe about where those are and what the concept is behind each one of them?
Well, yeah, first of all, where they are is our project managers have interviewed and talked with their respective workstream folks about people's level of interest, both what level of interest they have in moving forward with the consortium and what level of interest they may have in dealing with these products. Some people really care about it, other people would like to be consulted but don't have time. So that's part of the inventory. We've asked each one of the project managers to make recommendations, put together the product development teams. And so one of the things I would hope is the people who are here, if they haven't been contacted, can make themselves available to those groups. Again, there are 4 products that we said we would work on. One is a dashboard of critical indicators, and that's based on what we have seen in other communities. San Diego's one that's been cited periodically, but there are other dashboards that are already out here. So one of the first tasks there is going to be to find what do we mean by a dashboard? What do we need to know? There are certain indicators that HUD wants to follow as part of this planning process that are things that we need to monitor with the national significance, like growth or drop in vehicle miles traveled, certain equity equations, certain housing housing and transportation indexes. Those are national compared indicators that they would like to see us monitor, but they're ones locally that we think are important. So putting together the dashboard product team, defining what is a dashboard, what's already out there, that's the first piece of work. That's defining the needs, and that needs to be undertaken starting this moment going forward through October. In terms of the other elements, the toolkit, many have talked about we need a toolkit. We need to define what goes into that toolkit. We've already been doing elements like a land use map and a zone map, which we believe to be part of that. We think there are tools already that are out there, that best practices would simply say, let's cite that and put that in the toolkit. So working with those on the board that have been strong advocates of the toolkit to define what goes in the toolkit, that's an important thing. You know, all of these things are on the list because people have said this is one of the things they want out of. These ideas were not new, but they were somewhat of lesser emphasis in the original work program. But for those who are advocating, who have experience at the local government level, I'm thinking, Don, you know, your experience in community development, I'll lay your concern that this be practical. So what are the practical tools that go into it? Anthony Kovac is heading that unit. Joe McDonald is heading the dashboard group. In terms of the policies, that's a little bit vaguer perhaps. Policies can go all over, but we have had conversations about policies and coming forward policy recommendations. I would suggest as policies of truly regional significance, policies on the way in which we incentivize job locations or economic development. Some of the things we learned during the condition of trend platform about the way in which the state's economic development incentives scatter jobs away from transit. Policies having to do with the way in which transit organizations are funded. These are state level policies, well beyond our ability to change, but these may be policies we want to advocate. But there may be other local policies. I'm thinking there are people on this board that have advocated that, people great like you that are involved in policy development that need to work with us on what are the appropriate policies for us to advocate at this point to carry out the system. Kelly Britt is handling that. And finally, pilots. Jason, you and I have talked about pilots in the past, ways of testing things out, and also ways of pointing to things that are being tested. There are pilots going on all over. There are pilots, for instance, in Oberlin, piloting different things that are going on in terms of sustainability, in terms of community collaboration that we ought to point to, as well as pilots that we might want to sponsor. So, defining what our role in pilots is and how to move forward. Again, Jason, I think there are other members of the board that will find that as something they want to really focus in on. Mark Barbash is heading that particular effort, and we've already begun through our interns to identify practices and pilots that not only from this part of the country, but from elsewhere that people should be aware of. You'll see, I think, in our subsequent presentations, the evolution of our webpage as a way that we can clue people into these products as they come forward, instead of waiting to the end. So the work program is, for that group is organized around those 5 steps: in the middle, defining needs, developing the product and services and tools, testing, launching and learning, maintaining and sustaining. How that plays out in the time we have, given our needs and our resources, it's going to vary. But these are the steps we want to go through, not just sitting at the table talking about it. What are our needs? What's out there? What's already there? What can we bring together? Particularly thinking in terms of dashboards about the other things that are already out there. How can we pull those together so we're not being redundant? What can we learn from other places? How can we be an aggregator as opposed to an initiator? How can we use our communications to be of value to our members and the general public? Thanks. Any other thoughts? So what are we doing? Again, Vibrant Neo 2040, a vision, a framework, and the action products. Those are the key components of Vibrant Neo 2040. We've seen this graphic before. The top four bubbles are basically a standard planning process. What do we have? What do we want? How do we get there? Product and regional vision, framework, and action products. That's pretty well the standard, what's the plan and what are the steps to carry it out. But we said from the very beginning that we have other agendas here beyond just doing a plan. One is developing a common ground for collaboration, and the other is developing the community institutional capacity to learn how to do this and to develop the frameworks that allow us to make that happen. That common ground and capacity is, in many ways, just as important as the plan itself, and carries on and supports that plan. It keeps us from having a plan that doesn't go forward. I think in your handout there's a definition of one sheet. This sheet here lays out definitions of the vision, framework, processes, and products. So again, we can have develop some clarity about what we're looking to do. The vision is an agreement. Neo Vision 2040 is a process that Northeast Ohio uses to develop a vision for the future and the means to carry it out. A vision is an agreed upon set of values, principles, and goals that describe the kind of place where East Ohio can be in the future and identifies the changes that need to be made to get there. That's essentially what a vision deals with. It clearly, Ron, was what we use to define the role of Youngstown 2010, and we've used this in other contexts. It's not the detailed plan that you see in a land use plan. It's the broad definition of values, principles, and goals. A framework is an agreed upon structure of policies and practices and relationships that align the region's decision making and enhance the ability of our region's citizens and governments to make big and small decisions needed to achieve goals and vision. And frankly, I would hope that one of the major focuses and results of bringing the caucuses together, bringing our technical steering committee together, is to look at how we make decisions, how we adopt findings, and how we collaborate together into the future, so that the vision doesn't die stillborn. It gets carried out through a framework that's understood and understandable. And again, one early example of that is doing the regional land use and zoning maps through a framework of collaboration between the four NPOs and Cuyahoga County Planning, which enable us to produce very detailed maps relatively quickly. Can we make that a permanent framework and not just a one-off? Can we enter into some agreements between the agencies to maintain that? That's what we're talking about as an institutional framework. The process is a process of scenario planning. This is on the sheet, not on the screen. It's a disciplined examination of the region's future that develops and compares a set of alternative future scenarios. Citizens and governments to systematically examine long-term consequences of existing trends and identify the opportunities and challenges we face in the years ahead. The scenario planning is at the core of the Neo Vision 2040 plan. That's what we're up to bid for now. Is to get assistance in doing that, to build on the engagement platforms that we've been working for the last year to create, so that talent, that expertise, which is not available in the region, can be brought in and get to work quickly and efficiently and effectively and consistent with our commitments to broad-scale engagement across the region. And finally, the products are specific means by which the region's stakeholders can implement the vision. Again, these include the dashboard of critical indicators, toolkit of best and promising practices, a set of policies that support the vision, and a set of prototypes that test individual elements. So, kind of one sheet, try to boil down all the different elements that we've been talking about all summer into the key components. Any questions or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want to say thanks. This is very, very helpful, and it provides a level of clarity. The one pressing question that I've always had and that I'm curious about is the mobilization, the logistically handling the execution of these elements. Case in point, take scenario planning, for example. Do you guys envision that the consultant will come on and determine sort of how we begin to sort of move scenario planning as a process throughout the entire region within the next year? Is that something that's going to further be teased out? What the actual logistics are of it, the meetings, how the MPOs will be organized around it, those types of sort of what does the activities look like in that stream?
We've already been working on that.
Okay.
Based on what we know about scenario planning, and we're working closely with Patty Chovy on that.
Okay.
It's not. It would be a mind-numbing experience to bring an outsider in and try to figure this region out.
Right.
We have our platform, our basic values platform, is the communication engagement plan.
Right.
Where we said, here's what we want to do. Here's our commitment to engagement. This is what we've submitted to her. We've engaged Patty Chovy and her group to be responsible for working with the Communications and Engagement Committee to develop the logistics for that, which includes a set of meetings throughout the region. We're going to start with our MPO workshops, which are being scheduled, I believe. Each one of the MPOs to work with each one of your organizations and the elected officials to bring them on board. But the logistics is daunting, and we're already working on it in terms of how many meetings do we think we need to have.
Right.
Scenario planning is a lot more fine-grained than some of the mass planning work, say, Voices and Choices did. So, a metro-wide meeting of everybody in Mahoning Valley once or twice is not enough. I mean, these tend to be smaller meetings, 120, 150 people.
Right.
So we're getting down to how many meetings, where are they located?
Right.
Patty's got to figure out where the enabled spaces are. Are they accessible?
Right.
Can we get access to them? How do we reach out? One of the roles of communication and engagement to make sure that plan, we've touched the buttons we need to touch in this, but working to find all those sites. The process itself is, I believe, fairly straightforward. This has been explained to us in terms of the number of meetings, sequence of decision making, but the logistics of actually creating that meeting infrastructure. One of the other key elements of this to make this happen is to turn off and assign our in-kind. We've committed significant in-kind. The organization committed significant in-kind. One of Sarah's tasks is to go back through that list and see what we need. There's got to be communication between Sarah, Patty, and the scenario planning consultant about what do we need. How many bodies do we need in Ashtabula on Wednesday the 5th of March? And get them there. And to what degree can we count on folks from Ashtabula? To what degree we can people in or volunteers? That logistics is important. We're doing that look. We're looking at the scenario planning basically as the secret sauce. Pull it together and bring the technology. Techniques and the technology. We've got to have the ground.
That's good.
No other way to do this. And it's got to be locally. There's got to be a strong local center board, and that's one thing that we felt that the engagement of the board, the MPOs, COGS, and the communication engagement committee, making sure that what's being done is authentic.
Hunter, thank you for doing this one-sheeter. Would you agree that ideally you would want to do these sequentially, but because of the amount of time we have to complete the product, that we almost need to do them simultaneously, to a certain degree at least?
Well, I think that's a topic that we've had some considerable discussion. Traditionally, yes. And in fact, the way HUD sets up their program now is they've evolved. The plan is what they call a Category 1, and the products, implementation products, are what's essentially Category 2. I think there's a strong sentiment, particularly among those in the core group that work through this, that I share, which is to do a plan without building some capacity to carry it out, means you wind up with another plan. So we're making a commitment here to develop the products. Will we develop all the products to their fullest extent ever done? But will we define what a dashboard is or populate it? Yes. Will we define what tools are out there? Yes. Will we look at best practices? Yes. Will we begin to have something that can answer Linda's question? What do I take back to my city council? Yes. Because if we just simply take back the plan, I don't think we're going to get the credibility as an organization. So it really is, it's as much a matter of organizational sustainability. If you simply want to go out of business at the end of this grant, just do the plan. The business is a task force. But if the presumption is that this is an organization with a long-term future, it's in the value proposition, tools and techniques to carry plans out, and organizational frameworks that allow us to reconvene to keep an eye on it. Thus, it's a lot more complicated than we started out. But I don't see a way around it. If we're going to address the cynicism about planning, the need to build credibility and skills, and the need to have a track record that can be taken back to constituent institutions and say, this is what I'm getting for it. I got you a land use map, I got you some recommendations on zoning, I got you this, I got you that. By the way, we're going to go. Any other thoughts? Okay. Again, just briefly, one of our resources. We've got, as I mentioned before, we've got a small PO office. We've got the in-kind consortium members, which we're going to go back through and make some requests. And frankly, we found, for instance, Jason, when we asked Connie for some help several months ago doing the arcane world of HUD logic models. 2 days with 2 of our staff, we got it done. So we're going to be asking people for specific assistance on things to help out as we need. We have volunteers in our consultant team. And again, our activities, scenario planning and fiscal impact analysis. The other thing we haven't made much of a point about is the regional assessment of impediments to fair housing choice. This is a key component of the HUD ask as our principal funder. It's a region-wide assessment of impediments, and for those who are entitlement communities, this is big because as things now stand, each entitlement community, Lakewood, Harlem, Summit County, do an assessment of impediments to fair housing. There's a small group of consultants that do it. They all do the same work and pay $30,000 to $60,000 a pop to do it. Minimum cost. There's no way around it. By doing a region-wide assessment, we're going to be able to save those entitlement communities real money going forward by providing consistent information to those who buy in. Lucy, if you want to speak to that, but just as we think having a region-wide general land use map and a region-wide planning map and ultimately some region-wide transportation maps and the like will help individual communities do their job better with less money that they got to work with. This will actually save money. And we met with the Assistant Secretary for Fair Housing, and we talked about monetizing this. How much are we spending as a set of entitlement communities in Northeast Ohio now on this work, and how much does this process save us? This is perhaps going to be one of the, Lucy, you're already working on aggregating those numbers. This is going to be one of the ways in which we demonstrate regional collaboration makes bottom line sense.
I have to compliment Anthony as well on his job that he's been doing organizing meetings with the entitlement communities. And Mr. Davignon, I'll get a response to your initial letter.
And Bill Davignon stepped up and wrote the letter that we'll buy into this. Communities have to volunteer basically to be part of this, but at the end result they get all the data. And they get basically the first chapter of their book that they need to do, which is what are the conditions, and then they have to fill out how to response. There's close coordination, it's just FYI, between the engagement consultant and the IA consultant who's from Portland. Again, this is a unique expertise. to make sure that we're on the ground, we're engaging with those entitlement communities, we're having a whole set of focus group meetings out in the communities as we speak, and then the action products. Let me turn it over to Jeff to talk a little bit about where we are with communication. But I just want to take a moment to thank Sally Parker for all of the work that was involved in getting us this far. It has not been easy. The work of the core group that spent, I don't know, Jason, you indicated you spent several hundred extra hours that you hadn't budgeted to working along with the other core group members on all of this. And I think it means we have a much clearer way forward, an organizational framework that I believe is sustainable, and a set of deliverables that I hope, Joe, that you can explain to your folks and say, this will work, this will work out. So, without any other questions, Jeff, want to give us an update on the communication? What do you want to,
yeah, okay, I can come up with it. I think we skipped a couple later.
We'll circle that. Why don't we do that while we're
just a couple of quick things. Some of this had been in the works for a while. Some of the other things really hit home when we read the survey results. Overall, we are doing a refresh, I would say, much more than a refresh, maybe a complete renovation to our existing website to make it much more about the planning initiative by Renewal 2040, as well as serving as a space to go find best practices, to find some of our tools for different ways that the public can get engaged. And we'll be launching that site in the next couple of weeks. And I'll spend some time at the October board meeting walking you through it. But I hope that you find it a useful resource. There's some different calendaring things that we're going to be rolling out. And I hope it makes your job communicating about the consortium a little bit easier going forward. So we're going to be launching that in the next couple of weeks. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I sent out what we're calling now a board bulletin that had a couple different announcements. And one of those announcements was the communications toolkit for the Conditions and Trends platform. And that toolkit really has a lot of different tools and methodologies for you guys to utilize in your staffs, particularly your communications groups to utilize. There's newsletter copy, there's cover letter copies, there's social media copy, like Twitter copies, Facebook, different graphics that you can put on your website to link to the Conditions and Trends platform. So we did have a couple webinars on that, and we had not great participation. So in your packet and on the screen, we're having 2 more of those towards the end of this week, on Thursday and Friday. You can see them on this sheet, the October list. But if anyone else has any questions about that, they can see me after the meeting. We have had about 7 board organizations mail out the existing Conditions and Trends executive summary to their boards. So we're still looking for volunteers to do that, and following up with a couple of you about that coming up. Lastly, I did want to touch on board communications and kind of wading through the sea of emails you get from us in a given month. What we have worked on, and this is really kind of a schematic going forward, you can tell us if it's working or not, is to really focus on 3 formal communications with the board in a given month. The first one will be sent towards the end of the first week, beginning of the second week. It's an email bulletin that will really have like the highlights of things going on in the office. You might have remembered it. It's numbered at the top. You know, here's 3 or 4 things that you need to look at. That email will also contain, going forward, the itinerary for the next month's traveling board meeting, because we do know that that's been a difficulty in getting the itineraries together. So we started to work in advance. We're already working with the folks from Ashtabula County, and we're going to be meeting with the folks from Summit County in the next week or so to talk about the November board meeting. The second piece of official notification will be the board meeting materials that we always try to get out at least a week in advance. Again, those will be sent to you with the agenda, with kind of the rolled up PDF that you're used to seeing. They'll also be available on our website once they're sent out, so you can visit them there. And then lastly, I wanted to point out this new piece, the October 2012 list. And it was at the front of your packets today. And in our staff meeting yesterday, we focused on 5 things that you should know about this month and kind of carry with you this after this meeting. The first is, as Emma described, the RFP for planning, scenario planning, and fiscal impact. Bolded underneath there are some important dates that you're sending out, sending out the notices to anyone in your networks. The deadline for that is October 22nd. The second item relates to the regional analysis of impediments to fair housing. Part of that is that we'll be doing an online survey for all stakeholders in the region. So we will be sending out at the beginning of October a link to that survey that you can send out to your networks, and we ask that you help us get that out. The survey should take less than 10 minutes, and again, it's available for anybody within the Northeast Ohio region, residents all the way up to government officials. So the third one is on October 26th, the Quality Connected Places is going to host a charrette in Akron to really look at typologies and really start to design kind of the basic typologies that can be fueled into the scenario planning system. These typologies aren't really location-based in Northeast Ohio, but they just kind of have some different factors to them. That will be an afternoon session at the Uncorked Gallery on North High Street. And there's more information in your packet about that, including the address and a little bit more details. And we're working on parking for that. So there'll be more information in the board bulletin in 2 weeks. The fourth thing is the communications toolkit, which I mentioned earlier. We have a couple more webinars going on with that. And then lastly, number 5, as Hunter mentioned, Patty and Cobalt Group is really going to be reaching out to all of you to help plan these 12 county meetings. We're having engagement meetings in each of the 12 counties and MPO workshops over the next couple of months. So we're going to be relying on your networks to help us put that together. We will take care of a lot of the logistics. But again, Patty's going to be reaching out to you individually to move that forward. So are there any questions about any of the new board communications that we will have?
Jeff, on a separate handout for the planning charrette, for the Quality Connected Places planning charrette,
okay.
At the top it says save the date October 26th, but in the second paragraph it says in order to better inform the scenario planning process, on Friday, October the 5th.
26th. It's a typo. Yeah, it's a typo. It should have said 26th.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was the old date was the 5th, and
just checking.
Happened to put things together.
On that one, I would hope that board members could come and spend the time together on this. This is actually fun. It's an opportunity to apply some of the insights to geographies, and we're trying to also to make sure that as we bring the scenario planning consultant on, they've got good examples from Northeast Ohio. For those who attended the workshops that Envision Utah had, the imagery of what you like, what's a single family house, what's an apartment, what's a commercial district, are all part of the methodology for doing this. And our group has been working over the summer to identify those elements that are unique to Northeast Ohio. Shauna, you've been on that committee and worked on those as well, so that we can actually produce a plan that resonates with Northeast Ohio. So I'd hope that board members could come. The other thing is I'd mention that, and this comes from a conversation with Don Romanchik about the Condition and Trends platform. One of the things, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Don, but you mentioned to me that one of the uses that you've had going forward already is to use the C&T platform to onboard new staff. And that might be you might encourage your staff, not just yourself, but your staffs to participate in the webinars, because particularly if they're younger staff, this is how people learn. This is a great opportunity to learn about the region, put your work in a broader context.
Any other questions and communications? Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, the next item on the agenda, we'll circle back, is the August HUD monthly report, and I'll turn that back over to the staff.
Well, I think in your packet, I'll borrow this from You have the August monthly report that is the raw material we send out. But I asked at the last meeting if you want any further boil down, but hearing none, we're going to continue, if this is useful to you, to circulate to the board what we send off to HUD about the range of our activities. September and October activities, again, I think we've kind of covered those, focusing on the scenario planning, fiscal impact, and regional planning consultancy. In October, doing the interviews and moving towards the selection of a firm with the idea that we will be presenting a recommendation to you at the November board meeting. And as I indicated, the first phase of the needs assessment for the products will be commenced. And it's very important that if you are interested in any of these product teams, that you talk, let your interest be known to the managers. Again, Joe is handling the data, Anthony is the toolkit, Kelly Britt is the policies, and Mark Barbash is the pilots. And I think we're just going through the communications update.
Okay. Well, I think we're down to other business. Does anybody have any announcements or any other items you would like to share with the rest of the board at this time? Brad?
Jason, if I could, just to draw your attention to a handout that's in your packets. The Natural History Museum will be hosting a green building, advanced green building symposium on Thursday, October 18th, and I would invite all the members here this morning and your staffs and other people that are interested. It's a free symposium and open to the public, but we do request that you register just so we have an understanding of the number of people that will be coming. We've got a real list of national thinkers and doers around advanced green building. This is going to be the museum's kickoff publicly of redesigning our existing buildings in University Circle and kicking that off. So we're seeking input and really trying to push this forward to really build a really amazing green structure in University Circle, similar to potentially what we did with the smart home that we saw today. Driving by thinking, how do you build something that doesn't need a furnace in Northeast Ohio? Taking that same level of thinking to our entire campus as we undergo some renovation. So I invite you to come to that. Please let me know if you have any questions.
So in other words, you're offering us the opportunity to be at the on the ground floor, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And practice
and hold us to account.
And practice the state. Are we going to see whether your organization practices the livability principles?
We invite the students.
I see. Well, okay. That's one of our goals, is make sure you adopt it. Mr. Chairman, before we conclude, I just also want to thank formally Cleveland State University for making the space available. As you know, they are a full consortium member and have played a strong role here. But I think we need to show our appreciation for them as well.
Thanks. And thank you, Brad. Any other items for the good of the order? Jeff?
Just a reminder that at 3:30 there will be a walking tour of Playhouse Square by Tom Einhaus from the Playhouse Square Foundation. We'll probably leave in the front lobby here at 3:30. So.
Fred. I want to make a comment that may sound a bit cheesy, but I just think I think everybody should kind of take time out to kind of give yourselves a hand, because although this process has been challenging, it's come a long way, and kind of watching the program mature and get to this point, I think we don't do enough sort of acknowledging about the challenges that have been overcome, and I kind of can see more continuity growing throughout the group and some agreement coming to a head, and I just think that's a really positive thing. I just think you got to stop and just take stock of that and try to just kind of stay positive moving throughout the rest of this campaign. So,
one quick announcement just to remind people, if you are on the Finance Committee, there is a meeting afterward. I think if you migrate down to this end, Grace and Dan are down here, and they'll lead you to wherever the meeting's actually going to be.
Right down
right down here. And also, if you are interested in participating, if you're on the Executive Committee on the performance evaluation process, come see me. I'm going to try to schedule a meeting for next week, and if you are here today, I'll probably try to flag you down and at least try to set a date. So thanks. With that, we're adjourned.